Well, the little church in Florida. I'm in Florida, and I have so much testimony just by between now, today's the Sabbath, and yesterday. And I gotta share this with you, but I'm actually going to. I was invited to a potluck, but I wanna say this real quick. So I'm in Florida, and it's amazing how I got here and what God did. But I walked into this church. And it was, I prayed that I could glorify God today in a big way, that I could share my testimony. And I tell you what, it happened. I shared so many stories, and it ignited a fire in this church today. And everybody was sharing all their stories. And let me back up. Up at the church, everybody was already in church, and Tessa came out. And her husband, Alex, had fixed all the hydraulic hose on this fifth wheel that I had down here in Florida. It was amazing what he did, brother in Christ. Just I owe him my life, and that RV actually ended up being housing for my very good friends who are in Arkansas now. So God worked all things to His glory. So she came out there and she looked at me, and I looked at her, and she's like, because I didn't tell anybody I was coming, and she's like, "What are you doing here? I haven't been here since last year." And I'm like, "Oh, the Lord told me to come." And she says, "This is so strange because I felt this impression to come outside." And so, well, she was like kind of freaked out. She's like, I never leave the service, and we're doing Bible study, and she's, "I just had this impression to come outside, and you're standing here." And so we talked about the condition of the church, and she talked about how they were trying to it's very divided here, and she says it's people are struggling because of the division. And she said that there's people who want to get rid of the praise part of the sermon. And praise is very, very powerful. He conquered them through the blood of the Lamb and through their testimony. So we all have testimony. We all have praises, and we should be sharing that. And that elevates the saints. It encourages us. So we talked about that, and I said, when we don't share, we miss so much. And she's like, I know, you're right. And I told them a story about when I was in Savannah, Tennessee, how, I was in front of the church, and they called me up there to announce I was announcing a health retreat that I was going to have. I was called in front of the church to announce the health retreat, and I ended up giving a testimony about something that had just happened, and I was so excited I wanted to share with everybody. I did, and then the lady who was giving a Sabbath lessons, she said, "You know what, Stacy, why don't you start us out by prayer after I got done doing my my testimony," which was really an impromptu. So get this, after church, and I'm telling Tessa this, I said, after church, the elder said, "Come here," and called me into his office, and he said, "We kind of do things a little bit differently at this church." He says, "We have a kind of a schedule, and we do things in an order." So he says, "And I know you're full of zeal for the Lord, but he says, going up there and just sharing your story, we just don't do it that way." And I thought, what? Come on, I'm up there glorifying the Lord. I'm not glorifying myself. I'm telling my story about this incredible encounter, and the whole church was like excited. But no, we don't do it that way. And when I had left the area for quite a few months, and I had come back to visit then, I don't know, maybe 3-4 months later, and guess what? They'd gotten rid of the praise in that church. So what are we talking about here? Okay, so very quickly. So I go in, and I think the lady who was giving Sabbath school almost fell off of the pulpit when she saw me because I'm just showing up out of the blue. But we had a great Sabbath school, and again I got to share, and other people shared, and it was really exciting. So I went outside to check on Mario, and then the brother was out there. I forget what his name is. I think it's Jack. So he's standing out there, and he's like, "I got to tell you something." He says, "You're not going to believe this, but," he says, "I know you're not going to believe this, but I got to tell you this. And he's standing right outside here, and he says, you were in my dream last night. He says, I know you're not going to believe it, but, and he's standing right there telling me this. He says, you were in my dream last night, and he says, it was you, and we were at church, and you showed up, and you greeted me just like how you greeted me today, in the church, and he said, and you're wearing basically the same outfit. He said, I'm telling you. He says, this is. And I looked at him when we looked at each other and we said, we looked at each other and we said, you know what? If this isn't happening in your life as a believer, there's something wrong with your walk. And he says, you know what? I tell people that. I tell people that if you don't have things supernaturally happening, if you're not having encounters, if you're not having the Lord speak to you through his word, there's something wrong with your walk. And he said, people don't like to hear that right now. And I said, brother, that's why it doesn't surprise me that you had a dream with me in it.
Turn right.
Of course, that doesn't surprise me.
Turn left.
So, okay, anyway, I am heading to Alex's. And it is a beautiful Sabbath day. Mario is here with me. And I will, I'm going to take a little break. And then I'll tell you the rest of the story about what happened in North Carolina before... how I got here. It's an amazing story.